Keeping restricted physical distance in view, we have organized this webinar. National Institute of Nutrition, as premier research institute in the field of nutrition, we have organized a webinar today on the title COVID diet. As we all of us know, COVID-19 is a challenge to humankind currently being fought by all the nations and citizens, irrespective of caste, creed, color, region, and religion. There is no field or sector in the world unaffected by this pandemic. In this context, we have organized this webinar on the topic COVID diet. As we all know that immunity of the body plays a significant role in not only preventing, but also curing and treating any viral diseases, including corona. The more the immunity, the less chances of getting ill. Hence, this webinar is aimed to propel nutrition messages among the people to improve their awareness to build immunity, which enables them to prevent and fight COVID-19 and other diseases. Today, we have 4 distinct speakers to enlighten us. Dr. K M Nagar, former IAS and who have worked enormously in the field of nutrition, and Dr. R.V. Bhavani, Director, MS Swaminathan Research Center, Chennai, Shri Somashikar Garu, eminent journalist, and Dr. Aisha Ismail. I extend a warm welcome to the speakers and all participants. And now I request our director, Dr. Hemlata, to give her welcome message. Thank you, Vananal. Madam. Sainath, you unmute, madam. You unmute, madam. Sainath. Madam, you are not unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, madam. Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Maheshwar.
Yes, madam. Yes, madam.
Very warm greetings and welcome to the webinar. A very warm welcome to all the guest speakers and all the faculty and all the members who have joined this meeting. I especially thank the chief guest, Mr. Nagar, who has kindly consented to preside over the event. I also thank the senior journalist, Mr. Somashikar, and Director MS Swaminathan, Dr. Bhavani, for sparing their valuable time to address us. Yes, this webinar is a very timely one to discuss on COVID-19. What is important here is, all this while we have been harping a lot about what is good diet and what is healthy diet to improve nutrition. But this pandemic, although has created a lot of problem with respect to many aspects of our life, including a major dip in our economy, it has created one very useful thing. That is, there is unprecedented interest among people to know about healthy diet. That's because they have understood that healthy diet, yes, is very important to improve your immunity, but they don't realize that apart from improving immunity and controlling infections, it can also control many non-communicable diseases. So now people are looking for direction to improve their nutrition status and to achieve optimal immune function. And this is the best opportunity. The heightened motivation that we see now to acquire good nutrition should be used effectively to disseminate evidence-based knowledge, to improve dietary diversity and
You've gone on mute, ma'am.
Dr. Sainath. Sainath.
Yeah. Okay, I think by mistake I muted myself. So what we see here is, just in 2 lines I'll tell you, as per our data we consume excess amounts of cereals and not enough protective foods. A healthy diet, many of us know, should include 500 grams of vegetables and fruits and also substantial amounts of nuts. Then we are one of the lowest as far as vegetable fruits intake is concerned, and we are compared to countries like Ethiopia, Nepal, Pakistan. And when we look at our consumption pattern, we take only 160 grams of vegetables while we are supposed to take 400 grams. Similarly, fruit intake is only 22 to 30 grams per day while we are supposed to take 100 to 150 grams. So to meet the COVID diet, that is a balanced diet in the sense, we need reforms in agriculture, incentives to farmers to grow nutritious foods, also increase awareness about what is healthy diet and how it benefits. But more importantly, there needs to be regulation on high fat, high salt, sugar food production and also food labeling. These two aspects must receive a lot of attention from the government side, along with improving awareness, availability and accessibility to healthy foods. If you remember, in the last 1 or 2 decades, there's a lot of increase in prices with respect to protective foods, increase in prices with respect to vegetables, fruits, nuts, milk and milk products. But if you look at the high salt, high sugar, fatty foods, take for example chips and biscuits, it has not changed much. So naturally, people who can, who have limited resources, they go for, and also taste is another thing and awareness is another matter. But apart from that, easy availability and cheaper foods, high calorie foods come very cheap and people are motivated to buy those things due to lack of awareness and also accessibility. So now there has been a tremendous positive, this thing. Ours is the only country where around 10 ministries and departments are involved with respect to improving women and child nutrition, but right focus in the right direction is required. That still, we need to work a lot in that direction. And I'm sure this webinar is going to throw more light on farming, because I see speakers who are going to talk on farming system for nutrition and also nutrition sensitive agriculture. These are all very important aspects, and also how to communicate nutrition and health. This again is very important, and Mr. Somashikar is going to throw light on that. With respect to this, another speaker, vitamin D and immunity. Again, with respect to COVID, although many nutrients are very, very important for improving immune function, there has been huge multi-country studies with respect to how vitamin D can play a role, or where vitamin D plays a role in COVID-19 or not. So, a lot of evidence has come in that vitamin D benefits in the prevention and decreasing the risk of COVID-19 morbidity and mortality. So in this direction, I'm sure this webinar is going to throw a lot of information on all these aspects. Thank you all once again. My best wishes to this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mahesh.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Now, thank you very much, madam.
Thank you. Thank you.
And blessings. And now we'll move to our next session. Let us listen and hear, listen and see the presentation of 4 speakers. First among them is our chief guest, Dr. M Nagar. Before Dr. Sainath.
Yes, sir.
Shall I start introducing our first speaker of today?
Yes, sir.
You have to put that his name and that.
Sure, I'll do that.
Sir, once again, welcoming you. It's my pleasure to introduce for today's guest speaker, Dr. M Nagar. He is IAS retired. And I can say, after seeing his sir's curriculum vitae, more than IAS, he worked for nutrition related field, and he have brought significant changes in the nutrition related field. For example, his basic degree MSc is in food technology, and he have double PhD in food science and another PhD in nutrition from Usmania University. And sir's basic degree was BTech in food technology. Sainath, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes. Sir has put out 35 years experience in working as IAS and in nutrition field. Now is working as advisor for food and nutrition farm systems for government of Maharashtra, and he has published many research publications, of which many of research papers, majority of research papers are on nutrition related topics. And he has worked as state consultant, knowledge management and partnership of UNICEF in Maharashtra from 2018 to till date. He was member secretary and director general MCAER Pune. He was commissioner women and child development Pune. He was also district magistrate and collector of Usmanabad. And while he working as director For state health and nutrition, Aurangabad, he brought many significant changes, and he also worked for reducing child malnutrition in Maharashtra during 2005 and 7. He achieved many accolades from the state government and all other few of the NGO organizations, and he have evolved innovative measures and adopted while handling water scarcity in Usmanabad district while he was working as collector. And sir has undergone many training and studies. A few of the training I would like to highlight that Change Lab for Malnutrition and Reduction through Multi-Sector Bhavishya Alliance Partnership, and he got nutrition training for health and ICDS. He has worked for child mortality and remedies, and he also undergone a course in human nutrition. With this brief introduction, I welcome Dr. K M Nagar to enlighten us with his presentation on the topic nutrition and farming systems. So, Doctor, now I hand over the mic to Dr. Nagar.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Welcome.
friends. Thank you.
Sainath. Dr. Sainath.
Am
Dr.
I-
Sainath.
I will be sharing the screen.
Dr. Sainath,
Yes, sir.
why you have put this thing?
Oh, somebody else is moving the screen, sir.
Okay, you somebody else is moving. Okay, you take care of that.
Presentation. Shall I share the presentation, sir?
Yes, you share that.
I will not go on video. I will go on speaker.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are visible and audible, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir. You are clear.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Instead of, should I try to use my own slides from here?
You can, sir.
Fine, sir. Fine.
Because I can switch quickly. So you stop your slides. Let me try my side.
Sure.
Just a moment.
Sir, can you please unmute yourself, please?
Sainath. Sir, Dr. Nagar, sir. You unmute yourself, sir. Sir, Dr. Nagar, sir. You unmute, sir. Unmute. Here. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah.
You are audible, sir. You are clear. Your voice is clear.
Yeah. Thank you, NIN, for inviting me on this very interesting topic of addressing the COVID through diet and nutrition. We have been working in Maharashtra for last 2 years using the agriculture or the farming system for addressing the nutrition maladies in the state. And this project is taken after the initiative taken by MSRF Chennai. I'm getting unnecessary voice. Others are requested to unmute, please. Others are requested to unmute, please.
Yes, sir. They are taking care of. Dr. Sainath, you unmute Dr. K. M. Nagargoji. Sainath,
I'm requesting him to unmute, sir.
sir, you unmute yourself, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Sir, fine, sir.
So, in Maharashtra, we have started this farming systems for nutrition project 2 years before, and that project was aimed to reduce the impact or the prevalence of the malnutrition in the state, 0 to 6 of wasting, stunting, and underweight. All the three criteria. As per three criteria, we have high proportion of children in these criteria. So we have taken the different route in villages, especially. Their farming is going for the purpose of getting the incomes. So it is all commercial farming. So we shifted part of the farming system to a non-commercial and which will be useful for the family itself. So we started that project. That project was not only for the farm, but it was for the involvement of the school, involvement of the community, self-help groups, etc. And as a result, what has happened was, we started growing vegetables, fruits, then keeping the poultry for getting eggs for the children and the family members. And then the milk animals, if buffaloes and cows are not possible, at least the goats. So because of this, the family was getting fresh vegetables, some seasonal fruits. They were getting milk and milk products, and then the eggs. And wherever possible in the Konkani region, where there is seashore and there are high rainfall area, high rainfall, so there fishing was also taken up. So what happened was, because of this farming system concept, the family itself was getting the nutritious food items in their plate. As a result, it was expected that the malnutrition in the children, then adolescents, and adults would definitely come down. That was the main focus. That was the main purpose of the development system. But others are requested to mute, please. Others are requested to mute, please. So friends, now when we started thinking about how it can impact the COVID situation, so looking at that situation, it is rich in the vegetables, then milk and milk products, then the fruits, and then the animal products. So because of this and proper good quality protein sources from flesh, etc., this will lead to the proper nutrition. And if the proper nutrition is there, definitely it will have the impact of creating more immunity.
Sir, Nagargoji, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, you haven't shared the screen, sir. Your PPT screen are not visible.
No, I have not started it.
Not yet. Okay, fine, sir. Fine.
Because I have not handled it.
Not getting that. Fine, sir. Fine.
Actually, I was doing little introductory thing. After that introduction, I was to start the slide shows. So friends,
please carry on.
I come to the, what is the impact of COVID, and where recently there was one survey, and that survey was conducted in the 9 Southeast India, Indonesia, Mongolia, Myanmar, Nepal, Philippines, and Sri Lanka. So out of these 9 countries, India was one of them, and the sample selected from India was almost 40%. So what was the effect of this COVID on the vulnerable families? The sample was mostly from the vulnerable families. So it showed that majority, 61% families had lost their livelihood opportunities. Then movement restrictions were there. That was said by 66% respondents. 47% respondents said they couldn't pay even rent. 50% said they could not repay the loans. 30% respondents have borrowed the loan from neighbors, friends, etc. Then 30% respondents reported reducing quantity and quality of meals to cope with the loss of livelihood. So this will lead definitely to the undernutrition, acute malnutrition. So 24% respondents do not have access to adequate water for drinking, cooking, and hygiene. Then 61% respondents confirmed availability of soap in the market, but it was unaffordable to them. So that is the economic impact of the COVID. Access to basic health services decreased by 27%, and access to maternal centers decreased by 21%. So 92% respondents confirmed that updates of COVID-19 were there in the media. So they were getting the information and knowledge what is happening about what is the impact of COVID. Now I take you to what was the pre-2015 status of our communities is concerned. These charts are indicating. um, are you hearing me? Internet connection is showing unstable. So infant mortality rates during 5-6 was 57 per 1,000 live births, which came down to during 15-16 to 41. So U5 mortality also came down to 50% from 70. So like that, if you see even vitamin A doses coverage, it is
It's
60%.
not visible.
Earlier, it was not at all a big program.
Screen
It is
is not
visible.
visible, sir.
Okay.
Screen is visible. Are you
Screen
shared
is not
PowerPoint, sir?
visible.
PowerPoints?
PowerPoint
Yeah,
is not visible.
I'm
PowerPoint is not visible.
Oh,
Sir, PPT not yet visible, sir.
okay. Then should you start from your end?
Yes, sir. Dr. Sainath. Dr. Sainath.
Yes, sir. I'll share the
Yeah,
screen.
you
Have a
share
look
the
at
screen.
it.
You share the screen. And ask sir from which slide you have to start.
Is it
Fine,
visible,
sir.
sir?
Fine.
Can you see?
Sir, from which slide, sir, we have to start? Dr. Nagar Goje, from which slide?
NFHS score data. Slide number 5.
Slide number 5. Fine.
Slide.
Is this right, sir?
Sainath, slide number 5.
Yes,
You
sir.
go
This
to
is
slide number 5.
right. Is this right?
This is
Sir, it is first slide only. You go to 5, pick the number.
Go on the 5th.
Sainath, you
Yeah,
go
sir,
to
yeah.
the slide number 5.
It is going on, sir. It is going on, but maybe little time for it to be getting on.
No, first slide it's appearing on the screen.
Okay, now, sir.
Now only first slide only we have. First slide only.
There's some small technical issues.
Move the slides.
Saina, sir, shall I try from my laptop?
Yes, Jagdish.
Yes, connect it.
Okay, okay.
Not going from here. Can you please connect it?
Sainath,
Yes, sir. The Nagar
Sainath, you
within a minute,
slide
we have made alternate arrangement.
Yeah. Okay.
Within a minute we'll get, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Not showing the screen.
Jagdish.
Sir, now can you see the fifth number slide?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the fifth slide. Yes.
Ah.
It has
Okay.
gone. It has gone, Jagdish.
Okay, sir. Okay.
It has gone. Again, you say. Jagdish.
Okay, now.
Yes, sir. Screen sharing, just a minute. It is showing blank. Yes. Yes, sir. India simple.
Okay.
This is right, sir? India simple. Dr. Nagargoje.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
right.
Okay, fine, sir. Fine.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
Yeah.
Please carry on.
Edit करो यार बीच में.
Here you see, I start now. Here we see, there is a reduction in infant mortality
U5 mortality, and we see what was the coverage of vitamin A doses. Vitamin A deficiencies are there in rampant, so we have started the program of vitamin A to the children. And then the breastfeeding within an hour was 42%, and then the exclusive breastfeeding was 55%. So would you take next slide, please? Next slide, please, Sainath. Neha. Next, please. There is some.
Yeah.
Yeah, next, please. Next slide.
Yes, sir. Dr. Jagdish. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Getting a lot of information.
Can you see, sir, now? Slide number 6. We see.
Yes, sir.
There is. I should be able to operate that, would have been better.
Yes, sir. Dr. Jagdish.
It's not moving. Again, I will try after stop once.
Or
now okay. Moving. Which?
Sainath or Mahesh, Dr. Mahesh.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If it is not possible to show this thing on PowerPoint,
Yes, sir. Which number? Hare Krishna. Which number?
Yes.
This one.
Now let us go to slide 6. Let us go to next slide.
7. Hare Krishna. Dr. Hare Krishna. So can you tell me the number of this slide, sir? Serial number of this slide?
6. Now we have to go to 6.
6, sir. This is 6 slide, sir. This is the one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it is there. Yeah.
Fine.
Right.
Fine.
Yeah. Fine. So it is showing, solids or semi-solid food should be started at 6 months of age to the children who are, after 6 months they should start getting this. Earlier it was 53%, the coverage 2005-6, and now it has improved. It had improved to 43%. So then next row gives, the stunting, wasting, and underweight, and then the anemia in the children. So almost 60% children are having anemia. Non-pregnant women are almost 53% anemic, and pregnant women are 50% anemic. Let's go to the next slide, please. Sainath, next slide. Next slide, please.
Yes.
Next, please. Go ahead. Quickly, you go to next slides as I tell you. Yes. So supplement and nutrition programs. No, just go behind. You don't be so fast. Just go behind. So this shows the vitamin A prophylaxis program. So what are the deficiency symptoms, etc. This Kishori Shakti Yojana is there in the country, which empowers the adults and girls regarding health, nutrition, and hygiene, etc. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. And this is the one program for the tribal regions of the Maharashtra, APJ Abdul Kalam. So we are going back and forth, yeah. This shouldn't happen so, No. This, yeah. In this scheme, for the tribal women, hot cooked meal, 1 square meal is given to the tribal women who are pregnant and lactating in the Maharashtra. Next, please. Next, please. Yes, next, please. Yeah, let us go next. Next. What was the dose given to the children? They are quickly moving ahead. And then this, yeah, this shows the anemia. To control the anemia, what is the doses of elemental iron and the folic acid? So biweekly doses. Then for 5 to 10 years children, 45 milligram iodine and 400 micrograms of folic acid. So these things are given here. We can share this to the participants. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Let us go ahead. Now this is the what is happening. This is micronutrient deficiency, which suppresses the immunity by affecting innate T cell mediated and adaptive antibody responses, leading to dysregulation, balanced host response. Infections, morbidities lead to losses of micronutrients. Somebody is playing, because screen is getting something is written off there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is happening. We faced even in earlier webinar also. Some
Sir,
mischief person.
just I just
Okay, we'll take care of. We'll try to remove that, sir. That sign up. Please
sir,
continue.
please go ahead, sir.
Go ahead, sir. We are seeing who is
Next.
doing.
Infections, morbidities lead to the losses of micronutrients, and that affects the metabolic pathways. So here we have given immunity and nutrients, how they are related. So micronutrients, smoking, liquor consumption, then the physiological stages like pregnancy and lactation, and elderly persons have insufficient absorptions of the micronutrients. Then micronutrients acts on the 3 levels for natural defenses, that is skin, mucosa, cellular immunity, and antibody production. So this is how the micronutrients are useful. Let us go to the next, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. So this shows, the micronutrients such as, ferrous, copper, and then the selenium and the vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E. So these are very important. So immune system protects the infections of undernutrition impairs the immune system. Immune system is demonstrated to depend upon the essential amino acids, essential fatty acids. So there are 10 essential amino acids and 2 essential fatty acids. Those cannot be synthesized in the body, and they are important for the immune system. So if your diets are not Can you hear me, Dr. Maheshwar?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear. Please go.
Yeah, next slide.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nagar, go, yes, sir.
Next
Please,
slide.
please.
Yeah, next slide, please.
Yes.
So what is this FSM? This slide shows, we grow the nutrient-rich crops, cereals, and pulses, then biofortified varieties. We are giving emphasis to grow the red rice, which is rich in vitamin A, even the varieties of the bajra and the jowar, which are having high nutrient content. Those biofortified varieties are being cultivated in this project. Then nutrient rich roots and tubers. So sweet potatoes, which have high content of the vitamin A, they are also grown there. And these all these things are taken place at school level. Then there are genetic gardens. Then the animal husbandry component is also there, which include livestock. That means it could be buffaloes, cows, or a goat. So that would give the milk to the family. And the poultry for the eggs, fishery and duckery. But fishery depends on the resources of water, etc. Then the processing and preservation value addition is also important portion of this project. In this, because of processing and preservation, in the off season like summer, these vegetables and fruits and other things could be made available. And then the nutrition awareness campaign in the villages, through SHGs and the Gram Sabhas, the nutrition awareness program is taken up. So how you get the better nutrition through the fresh vegetables, which vegetables provide what nutrition, which fruits provide what nutrition, and then how, because of providing of these better nutritious diet, how malnutrition has reduced in the villages, that has to be shown to the community. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sainath, next slide, please. So non-core activities are like behavior change, communication. Those things are covered in that. Then safe water sanitation, nutrition education, natural resource manager, and women's empowerment. You would find all these programs and cultivation on the farm is done by the women. So that those photographs will come next. Next, please. Next, please. How we improve the nutritive value of the foods which you consume. Instead of legumes, we can sprout them and then add it in the diet. So that was one. Would you go back, please? So this slide gives, how you limit the fat intake. Now the director madam was telling the junk foods are there, then the fried items are there in the diet. So you reduce the fat, you reduce the salt, reduce the sugar. And this thing I was telling about, consume the sprouts, then you include the raw vegetables in the diet like carrot, beetroot, radish, etc. Consume the fermented foods like curd, tempeh, idli, yogurt, kefir. So this fermented food will improve the digestibility and the immune system of the body. Then use the nutri cereals like ragi, bajra, sorghum, and other minor millets. So there should be a variety of foods in the diet that is expected. And this FS Would you go to the next slide, please? Disturbance. Next, please. Sainath, can you hear me?
Dr. Sainath,
And then,
Activities.
yeah.
FS.
So here,
Yes, sir.
so this is showing homemade food should be preferred, avoid alcohol, stay hydrated, drink a lot of water, but not aerated drinks. Then I come to the what are the FSN activities going through the Krishi Vigyan Kendras of the Maharashtra. Next, please. Then I had said about the yoga exercises, meditation, etc. That will improve the immune system of the body. So now we come to the activities of the KVKs. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Can you hear me, Maheshwar, Dr. Maheshwar?
You are very much audible, sir. You are very much audible, sir.
Yeah. Now, slide. This is
Yes, sir.
where it is showing here, how you plan the planting in a small area, maybe, radius of 15 to 20 feet. In this also, whatever the vegetables are required for the family, those could be planted. So this is the one Krishi Vigyan Kendra of Jalna, where women meetings are conducted, and then, this is also published in the newspapers. Next, please. Now you can go little faster. Next, please. Sign up. Next, please. Okay. This is one Krishi Vigyan Kendra of Kolhapur. Here you can see the women farmers which have come for the demo at the taluka level. This is again Krishi Vigyan Kendra Lanja. Here it shows, how you use different cereals also and vegetables. This is next Mohor KVK. Next, please. You can just skip now one after another. I don't have to explain much here. Next, please. Sign up. Next, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. This is Narayangao Krishi Vigyan Kendra. So this is how we are going ahead. This is Roha Krishi Vigyan Kendra in Konkan. This is Sindewahi. Next, please. Next, please.
Fine, fine.
So here it ends. So I really thank you because of, use of. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Dr. Nagar, you are audible. You are very much audible, sir.
There was a lot of disturbance anyway.
No, sir. You are very much audible. Just insignificant this scratching happened. And thank you. You finished, sir? Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagar, sir, for your excellent presentation, and there was a lot of things to learn us, and you have enlightened us. And now I invite Dr. Bhavani, Director, Agriculture, Nutrition, Health Program of MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. But before her presentation, I request Dr. Sylvia Fernandez to introduce Dr. Bhavani. Dr. Sylvia.
I will start with the most important question of the season. Am I audible?
Yes, Dr. Sylvia,
Okay.
you can please proceed.
Yeah. Good morning, dear audience. I will now very briefly introduce our second eminent speaker for today, Dr. R.V. Bhavani. Dr. Bhavani is Director, Agriculture, Nutrition and Health Program at the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation and coordinates research activities and advocacy on leveraging agriculture for nutrition. Dear audience, please mute yourselves, please. Thank you.
You mute everyone. Sign up.
I'm sorry, Dr. Bhavani. I will continue. A postgraduate in economics with an MPhil in planning and development from IIT Mumbai and a PhD from Madras University, Dr. Bhavani has been working on food, nutrition and livelihood security issues at the foundation for nearly 2 decades. Between 2004 and 6, Dr. Bhavani was on deputation as an officer on special duty with National Commission on Farmers, Government of India, And from 2012 to 18, she was project manager of an international research program consortium on leveraging agriculture for nutrition in South Asia that was led by MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. So let's get ready for a very important session on COVID-19, importance of nutrition sensitive agriculture. Over to you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sylvia. And very good morning to all of you. And my presentation will kind of follow from Dr. Nagar Goje's presentation in terms of the highlighting the need for having a nutrition sensitive focus in agriculture. And thanks to NIN for this opportunity. And as Dr. Hemlata mentioned right at the beginning, the COVID crisis and the issues involved around it, and how best we could address it. So just again to kind of set a little more of the context, Dr. Nagar Goje mentioned this survey by World Vision, and we had the State Food Insecurity Report of the Food and Agriculture Organization coming out last month. So it's that we already have a huge problem of malnutrition, and now this COVID crisis is expected to further aggravate the situation. So adding to the total number of undernourished people and increasing the challenge before us, and in terms of also requiring a change in the way we respond or to address the challenge. So we also need to remember that along with this huge problem of malnutrition that we have this large population that is dependent on agriculture, which is what makes nutrition sensitive agriculture important. We all know that agriculture is the source of food, but traditionally the approach has been that the thrust has always been on agriculture productivity, on production, prices, and more on just like the Green Revolution was just for addressing hunger, in terms of addressing calorie needs and to generate more income. Doubling farmers' income is what we talk about. But nutrition has to get equal focus in this whole picture, which is where the need for nutrition sensitive agriculture comes in. And over the last, especially over the last 2 decades, there has been a lot of there have been studies, research, and also in the global arena talk about the need for nutrition sensitive agriculture. We have countries in Africa like Ethiopia and Nigeria who've introduced nutrition sensitive agriculture as part of their plan process. And this is from the FAO in 2014, where it was highlighted. There was this major conference on agriculture, nutrition linkage, and how you define nutrition sensitive agriculture as a food-based agriculture approach, which becomes relevant in the context of this huge population dependent on agriculture and allied activities, and also which is malnourished. So you find that in the Sustainable Development Goal 2 of, which is zero hunger, where you're talking about ending malnutrition and also the need for promoting sustainable agriculture practices. So this is kind of explicitly recognized, that leveraging of agriculture for addressing nutrition problems, leveraging agriculture for nutrition. And if you look at COVID, and you find on the WHO's website that the point highlighted, which Dr. Nagar Goje also referred to, the need for eating a balanced diet, and the points that he mentioned about eating more of sprouts, of eating unprocessed food, salads. These are all points highlighted in the WHO's website as well. And the evidence that we find from on the ground studies, from interventions on the ground which have been reviewed, is that agriculture's primary role is in improving nutrition, and in improving nutrition is to increase the access to nutritious foods and healthy diets, to improve the dietary diversity. And that is the primary role. Like Dr. Hemlata referred to diets being largely cereal dominated, but consciously, if you can bring about this change in terms of agriculture improving access to nutritious foods and healthy diets. So if you look at the pathways linking agriculture to nutrition, we find there are these 6 pathways which are now currently recognized and accepted. the direct pathways in terms of agriculture as a source of food, in terms of agriculture prices and income, which will also determine as to how your own purchasing power to be able to access the nutritious foods, and also nutrition awareness being an integral component to be able for you to make that judicious choice. And the gender pathway, the three circles below are the gender pathways, which again are very important in terms of women's decision-making power and what say does she have in what is to be grown on the farm. And how women also, we all know, play a major part in agriculture, like the pictures that Dr. Nagar showed. Most of them were dominated by women. So women, play a role that they play in agriculture, and they also take care, attend to work at home. So the balance between their work in agriculture and their work at home, how it impacts on their own nutrition and their capacity for the care of their children. So in terms of the time, everyone to mute their mics, if you wish to listen. And so this is the picture where, where we stand today in terms of the global picture and the pathways linking agriculture to nutrition. And in this context is where, again, the point that Dr. Nagar mentioned, given that also we are in India, in the Indian context and in other low and middle income countries where population dependent on agriculture, largely smallholder farmers. It's like not large scale farming like in the developed countries, but smallholder mass farming, farming by the masses. Like 85% of our farmers are small and marginal farmers. So to bring in this nutritional dimension and to address the nutritional deficiencies prevailing in the area. So these are like location specific models which will need to be developed, and also taking into account the local biodiversity, people's own traditional knowledge. It's not that the people living in that area for ages are unaware, but for somehow this has all got changed with the introduction of more of monocropping, but to bring back the multiple cropping and to ensure that smallholder farm family is able to get nutritious, balanced access to nutritious and balanced diet. So, and attention to gender and the life cycle. You need different kinds of food in different stages of your life cycle. Like when a pregnant woman will need more of iron-rich foods. Similarly, the young child in the 0 to 2 age group would again need complementary feeding of the right proportions. So nutrition literacy becomes very, very important in this whole approach. So it all has to go together for having maximum and effective impact. And so this is again essentially to reiterate that traditionally nutrition, this circle on nutrition has not been part of the farming system, but nutrition sensitive agriculture brings this in, and that's the way. If we are really serious about addressing malnutrition, this has to be the way forward. Of course, the research system is now coming up with a lot of biofortified crop varieties, as Dr. Nagar mentioned, but then that has not really gone to the field or the ground level at a mass scale or a large scale. So those are issues which need to be addressed. This again is something Dr. Hemlata referred to in her introductory remarks, that diets tend to be largely cereal dominated. NNMB surveys have shown it, and our baseline survey in the two regions that we worked in, Koraput district and Wardha district, where it was a feasibility study to demonstrate this farming system for nutrition approach. So our focus was on improving the dietary diversity by bringing in the cultivation, promoting the cultivation of nutrient-dense crops. Like in Wardha, those familiar with the area will know that the area under sorghum has fallen and given way to commercial crops like soybean and cotton. So the need to bring back sorghum at least for your own home consumption, bringing in more pulses. Like in Koraput, in Kharif, there was no cultivation of pulses, but introducing a pulse crop, intercropping of say maize and pulses, and then growing of cultivation of a pulse crop in the rice fallow. So innovations that need to be brought about. Nutrition garden of fruits and vegetables, again, much talked about now in this COVID scenario. Very, very important to ensure household availability of fresh fruits and vegetables and the need to address micronutrient deficiencies through them. And wherever possible, animal food access, depending again on the resource availability. So in Koraput, we promoted fishery. In Vardha, with landless farm households, largely it was promotion of poultry. And nutrition awareness across the board in terms of what is the nutrient content in the different sources of food, the food that you grow, and also in terms of what is the balanced diet, and that it's not just consuming cereals is not enough, and you need to have these different components. And when we did an inline survey 3 years later in 2017, we were able to demonstrate that there was improvement, to see that there was improvement in household dietary diversity, and the recommended consumption of all food groups was happening, and there was more of this understanding and practice of nutrition sensitive agriculture by households. And so going forward, we have been collaborating with agriculture universities. So Dr. Nagar in 2017, he was Director General of the Maharashtra Council for Agriculture Education and Research, under which all the agriculture universities in Maharashtra fall, and he's been a big champion and supporter. And we've been working closely together in working with the KVKs in promoting this approach. Similarly, in Andhra, we've been working with the Andhra Acharya N.G. Ranga Agriculture University to demonstrate these location-specific models to address nutrition deficiencies in that area with the farming, the crop systems and the crop varieties that they are familiar with to promote these, and highlighting essentially the design, what Professor Swaminathan keeps reiterating in terms of including specific crop varieties to address identified nutrition deficiencies. So like orange flesh sweet potato can address vitamin A deficiency. Similarly, drumstick moringa is rich in we had found in Vardha when we were working that although there were moringa trees, they were not consuming it. So nutrition awareness becomes very important. Recipe demonstrations become very important. And also an understanding of the bioavailability from different foods becomes very important. So there is this need for different agencies to work together. And I think NIN organizing this kind of a seminar is very important, and we need to carry it forward from here. And I think one could say the COVID is kind of a wake-up call, for all of us in terms of this is something we've been talking about, like even in late 2019 when the Eat Lancet Commission report came out, the need for transforming of our food systems in the face of climate change and to address malnutrition is something we've been talking about. And one of the strategies highlighted there is to reorient agriculture priorities to produce healthy food. And more recently, during the COVID crisis, this quote from the FAO director at FAO saying that those who are more malnourished are more prone to this crisis and the infection of COVID, and could lead to a crisis within a crisis. So which is something we need to brace up to. So it's kind of like it becomes, and also we saw during the COVID crisis and the lockdown, especially in India, those of us who went through it, the breakdown of the supply chains and lack of transport, and so the question of access to nutritious food. So the need for more of these location-specific, local value chains, local models of farm system for nutrition, decentralized processing and of agri-food nutrition sensitive value chains to build resilient communities. And that would be how we would see as the way going forward, and which has to be taken up at the policy level as well. It is to be appreciated that now under Poshan Abhiyan, there is also this initiative for the Bharat Krishi Poshan Krishi Kosh, which is emphasizing on documenting all the locally rich foods available across the country according to the agroecological region. And that is something which can really contribute to this effort to promote such a kind of approach. And so I would like to end by saying that, there has to be this close working together of all agencies and for agriculture to talk nutrition. Because when you talk of nutrition and nutrition programs, it's generally seen as the domain of the Women and Child Department at the policy maker level. But no, agriculture, right? Men, male farmers, female farmers, everyone need to talk nutrition and understand the importance of this. We are, for instance, also working with Krishi Vigyan Kendras in 4 districts of the country to set up this, garden, the genetic garden or the garden of nutri-rich plants. Dr. Nagar referred to genetic garden, where all the locally available genetic material of different plants have been collected, and their nutrient content is highlighted. So what it is useful for, whether it's rich in which vitamin it is rich in, or which mineral it is rich in. And this garden, we hope will also, we are doing this with the ICMR, and we hope that this garden will also serve as the supplier of planting material, to promote this approach. And we see a major role for ICMR and the NIN there for, highlighting this nutrient content, validating, and also in terms of the nutrition awareness. So we need to have these different agencies come together and work together as we come out of, as we face up to the COVID challenge, and also prepare to come out of it. For nutrition sensitive agriculture interventions, local level models, pro-nutrition agri-food value chains, and most importantly, I think across the board, nutrition awareness, because also the other side of malnutrition is overnutrition and obesity, which comes from consuming unhealthy food. So to have this balance, again, nutrition awareness across the board is going to be very, very important. So all of this together is what would be a holistic nutrition sensitive agriculture approach. And I think that is what has to be the way going forward. And this beginning by NIN in organizing this webinar on COVID diet, I think will be a beginning that is further taken forward, and we look forward to engaging and working with you and other organizations in this area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bhavani, for an awesome presentation. And particularly, thank you very much for letting us know about this nutrition sensitive agriculture from the perspective of zero hunger, which is the second goal of SDG, and agriculture system for nutrition. And you have presented efficient design also, which we learned many things. And from your inferences, from your presentation, I can draw an inference that agriculture without nutrition has no meaning, and nutrition without agriculture is not possible. This is the inference we are going to draw. And thank you very much for your nice presentation. We have learned many things, and thank you once again. And now we will move for the next part of our webinar. Now I invite Shri Somashikar Garu. He is an eminent and senior journalist, worked for more than 3 decades for The Hindu, Business Line. And before Sir Somashikar Garu starts his presentation, I invite Dr. Kiran Cherian to give a brief introduction and profile about the Shri Somashikar Garu. Kiran?
Thank you, Dr. Maheshwar sir. I hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes, yes, you're very much audible.
Okay, thank you. So let me give in a few brief lines about Shri M Somashikar. He was a former associate and chief of bureau, the Hindu Business Line. He completed his master's in communication and journalism. Everybody to keep quiet or silent. Please mute yourself.
Sainath, what is that? Sainath. But Sainath, just take care of that sound. Okay, Kiran, please carry on. Kiran.
Yeah, sure.
Carry on.
So he was joined as a journalist in 1983 with the Press Trust of India. He has traveled across extensively and covered various stories at the state, central, and international levels. To name a few, he was deputed to France to cover the centenary of Eiffel Tower. He then later in 1993, he joined the Hindu group, where he covered many parliamentary proceedings and other major political developments. He also served as a secretary of the Indian Science Writers Association from 1997 to 1999. Later in 2001, he headed the business line of the Hindu. He was honored by the Andhra Pradesh and Telangana governor ESL Narasimham in 2016 for his contributions to journalism and press club. He has moderated many professional sessions. Recently, he also interacted with editors and the Congress President, Mr. Rahul Gandhi. He has also published a lot of articles related to COVID-19 very recently. So he has had enough experience in science writing as well. So I think he is the best person to cover the role of media in communicating nutrition and health, challenges of scope during COVID-19. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for the nice introduction. And a very good morning to all of you. First of all, my thanks to Dr. Hemalata, the director, and also to Maheshwar for giving me this opportunity to address this important issue. First of all, I would like to give you a contrast in how media has changed in terms of impact of covering nutrition in a way. It was sometime in the mid-80s, based on a study by NIN. I wrote a story that okra or bendi, which we commonly eat, has a lot of protein in it. Now, when the story was written, it was published in several newspapers. One of the local newspapers named Deccan Chronicle had a good cartoonist. Now, what the cartoonist did was he put a cartoon next day morning on the front page saying that, there was a depiction of a vegetable vendor and a person in front asking about, vegetables. So he said Bendi's cost was higher than all other vegetables. So then the person asked why. So the lady told him that only yesterday I read that Bendi has a lot of protein in it. Therefore, it's costlier than other vegetables. So the learning is that, the importance of nutrition is quite significant. And at that point of time, say in the mid-80s, all of us know, especially the experts in nutrition, that protein energy malnutrition was a big problem. And I think even now it continues to be. Therefore, the need for information about nutrition, about health was very, very important in the media. Now, coming to 2020, when this COVID-19 started, the cases increasing, some of the doctors and scientists said that vitamin C is good to build immunity. And when on one of my trips outside, I found that the vitamin C tablets, zinc, and many micronutrients just flew off the shelf. They were not at all available. So I need not, re-emphasize the role of nutrition in our daily lives. But before I come to covering, COVID-19 and how it has been done, what we can do, let me give you an overview of the media, because I think my earlier speakers have given a lot of insights into nutrition, its importance, into agriculture, health, and how to tackle and all that. Now, if you look at the media changes up to 1990, the media was predominantly print, newspaper, that is AR, that is radio, and television. It was dominated by public sector in a way, and we had a highly regulated economy. After the 90s came the economic reforms, during which time we saw foreign investment, innovation, lot of entrepreneurs coming in. There was growth in consumerism. Along with it came the private sector. Private sector brought in investments into newspapers, therefore you see a lot of business papers and newspapers in different languages. Then there were a lot of television channels which came in. So there was a growth in the media during the 1990s. Coming to the third phase, that is 2000 and onwards, now you see the impact of the internet, the growth of Google, the coming of email, and all these web-based news portals that proliferated during 2000 and onwards. Now this rapid changes in communication growth and also new channels, expanded into regional languages, regional television, regional language newspapers, and so on. Now, post 2010 is the most important phase which has completely changed the communication scene in the world. We see the growth of social media, especially the Facebook, the Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I think a lot of young people know many, many new ways of communicating within communities and to the world. So all this has dramatically changed the way news is transmitted and the way news is consumed. We are now into virtually instant communication era. Now in India, traditionally, if you look at media has been biased or covering more of politics. That is because of our independence movement and long struggle, wherein media also played an important role in communicating and highlighting all these aspects to the public. But if you look at the challenges that the media has, now it has to cover very diverse subjects ranging from economics, business, global politics to science, technology, and many, many areas. If this be the challenge, how is the present media handling COVID-19 is what I think we should like to take a deeper examination. Now, if you look at when COVID-19 set in, cases started, generally in India, the media, public, politicians were a bit dismissive and said, we might not be affected. And you saw a lot of social media posts through TikTok and so on saying it's a Chinese problem and, it's not going to affect India. India's public immunity is far high and all kinds of things were being floated around and media lapped it up. We were writing a lot of stories about how sunlight would help, how our traditional diets were very useful in fighting COVID and protecting immunity. There were a lot of fads. There were a lot of people communicating all kinds of things. And I think even today, it keeps happening. If you look at social media, there are many self-assumed experts in nutrition, self-assumed doctors, and everybody is giving advices to people about how to build immunity, how to be well protected, what kind of diet you should eat. So you have a lot of information coming from various sources. So what has happened is now with media being completely open, you can use various forms from newspaper to television to radio to web-based portals and communicate to the world. You can have WhatsApp messages and then every person has a way of communicating whatever he or she knows. In short, we have come to a stage of citizen journalism as it's called, and views, news, and communication are very free. So in this context, we have looked at what is the role of journalists like us in communicating reliable information. The challenge is to have content which is reliable. Information is available, but we require credible information. Now in journalism, we are taught about who says is more important sometimes than what is said. In today's context, if you look at, last week I heard Manushi Chillar, she is a Miss World and also I think recent Bollywood actress. She announced that she is going to start a channel and communicate about nutrition, importance of nutrition and so on. I'm sure a lot of people will follow her and listen to what she's saying. But the good part was she declared that her parents were both doctors and she follows a good diet. And I think that has shown results in terms of her own successes in her career. So she will definitely get a lot of people following. But what communicators and journalists really require is the people who are involved, people who are aware, people who have knowledge on nutrition, health should be communicating. For example, when we look at the initial 2 months during lockdown, the government of India started communicating on a daily basis about what's happening, and the focus was on number of cases, number of deaths, what's happening, where statistical data was given out, and most often it was by bureaucrats, and one or two doctors were there. Then slowly the persons, the experts who are supposed to be involved in this were epidemiologists, medical professionals, healthcare professionals, and so on, along with the administrators. This in many places really did not happen, and we had instances where cardiologists, gastroenterologists, and other specialists also started talking about virology, about all these viruses, immunity, and so on. Now, I'm not finding fault that they are not well versed, but the credibility of communication is more important. For example, if you look at the success of polio vaccine and immunization over a long time, polio drops, we had people like Amitabh Bachchan, explaining about the importance, because the subject was very simple and polio was very, very well understood. The only message was that every child should be given, and Amitabh Bachchan was perhaps the most popular face to communicate in a simple language. But in the context of COVID, the entire world has been thrown into a learning phase. Many people, started questioning from where it has come, how it has come. It took a lot of time to understand. And even today, the manifestations, the mutations of the virus, the impact, how it's impacting health of different people is also being understood, and in continuous learning is going on. So what I intend to look at is what are the areas that we should look at where nutrition and communicators like us can play an important role. One of the areas is kids or children's nutrition status. The second is vaccines, and third is women. How we are able to ensure that these sections of people get the right nutrition. In the hurry to cover COVID-19, media is completely focused on writing about drugs, writing about the vaccines that are under development. A lot of time is spent in covering, data, deaths, mortality, recoveries, and also the stories that patients are able to communicate now after 2-3 months of complete confusion about what treatment they are getting and all that, because there is now more understanding from the medical fraternity also about tackling this disease, with greater success in terms of recoveries. So media needs to get information to cover all this better, because most of the media now, thanks to the scare, thanks to the unknown fear about the impact on health, are working out of home. So the contact with people, gathering information from the point of activity, going to hospitals and all has been a bit tough. Therefore, we require better coordination with medical professionals, institutions like National Institute of Nutrition, the ICMR, and all those involved, in communicating news and information that is related to nutrition in a better way. But I see some of the experts from the NIN coming on television or radio and explaining. And that's how we would look forward to more experts from the ICMR, the agriculture institutions, the scientific bodies to communicate with the media and explain what exactly we would like the public to know. Otherwise, what will happen is people will look at social media, WhatsApp, and start getting into fad diets, fake diets, or quack doctors, and we might end up having a scenario where there is huge sale of products which are not validated by scientific research, and people land in trouble. So I think there is a role for both the media and the scientific community, especially the nutritionists, to exchange more information and collaborate in communicating this information to the public. For example, there are associations within the media, like the Indian Science Writers Association. Then there are government organizations to the public, or at least the system evolved where the media can go to these experts to get all their doubts clarified so that they can write good, credible stories. To give you an example of the impact of information coming from a credible source, when the vaccine projects started evolving in India, there was a lot of hope, and India is also among the top countries where a potential vaccine is going to come out. So when the ICMR DG sent out a letter about accelerating the entire process of vaccine development, there was a lot of furor. The impact on what he said was felt immediately. The previous occasion when he also explained about the problems and how the country is progressing on vaccines also was well taken. Therefore, we are looking at very, very credible information to come from good institutions and scientists who are knowledgeable about this COVID-19, because the disease itself is evolving, and we are in a continuous stage of learning, which I think is good for science, good for people. But what as communicators, as journalists, we look forward to is timely and relevant information, which is now most important because we are, as I said earlier, in an age of instant communication. Any person knowing any information is putting it out on social media. So if something happens, I think the institutions involved in nutrition research, healthcare, medical professionals should be quick in answering and giving information, or else the other forces, other voices that give out information which need not always be credible will get a greater currency in the public domain, which I think is not a good thing, especially in India where we have this diversity of languages, inequality in access to information and also understanding. Therefore, we are looking at a more engagement with institutions to explain various aspects of health and nutrition in not just English, but also multiple languages, not just on television, radio, but there are lots of online portals, news portals which instantaneously put out stories. So it's quite a challenge to both the media and the scientific community to keep people informed. And as my predecessors, both of them have explained, there is so much happening in India that information needs to be streamlined and coordinated between journalists of different publications and different media so that we can take the message to the right people in the right time. The one criticism that most often journalists have faced during COVID-19 is that we are creating more scare by writing more, harrowing tales of, mortality or, neglect or public hospitals not doing their job. The reason perhaps is that we are not getting adequate information from the right sources. I request experts to look at their role also in terms of communicating information that they have quickly and in time. So we can improve, the coverage of stories, coverage of information, more human interest stories. For example, a 103-year-old lady fighting COVID and, coming out successfully. There have been stories like that. So we require more stories of people, how they have also come out of this and how the role of nutrition, better diet has also helped, maintain the health of condition and fight this case. It's just not in, diet for keeping you in good shape or six packs, but also I think diet is good for health. And finally, we are what we eat. We are what we eat. Therefore, I think I need not reinforce the importance of health and nutrition coverage for all of us too in this context. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Somashikar garu. Thank you very much for the elaborate analysis. What are the scopes and challenges media face, and at the same time, how scientific community and medical fraternity has to synchronize with the media in order to disseminate the information. Yes, you're right, and your experiences are right. Because I can say it confidently that I'm a former journalist who worked for almost 15 years in Innate news time, and I too faced the same kind of things. And after coming to NIN, I conducted some studies how mass media, particularly print media, is disseminating nutrition information and health information. But I cannot say that coordination is lacking between scientific community and journalists. Coordination is there, but not as adequate as required. And moreover, media essentially slant towards sensationalism and towards they like to give hot news like that. In that, their endeavor for the purpose of commercial things or competition between media, sometimes the news carried by the news media on the based on the information provided by the scientists may get overexposed, and it leads to a bit of confusion among the readers, which I have come with significant findings from this study. But despite all these, certainly scientific community and medical fraternity and media has to work together with synchronized efforts with the only aim of giving information to the public so as to improve their knowledge to get to achieve 100% health. Thank you for your presentation, elaborate presentation, and sharing your experiences. Thank you very much, Somashikar garu.
Thank you.
Now it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Aisha Ismail, who is my colleague in NIN. She's scientist E, and she's going to present on vitamin D. She has good work in vitamin D. She's going to speak vitamin D, immunity, and COVID-19. Before our presentation, I request Dr. Jagdish Bhuwade to give a brief introduction about Dr. Aisha Ismail. Jagdish. Dr. Jagdish?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Dr. Aisha Ismail, madam. Presently, she is holding scientist E post in the Department of Biochemistry NIN. Dr. Ismail has master degree in biochemistry from the University of Hyderabad and PhD in biochemistry from Osmania University, Hyderabad. Before joining NIN in 2008, she received postdoctorate training at the MD Anderson Cancer Center, Houston, Texas, and the University of Miami, Florida, USA. She is a recipient of the Young Investigator Award at the American Society for Bone and Mineral Research, United States of America. She was also awarded the Ramanujan Fellowship and Young Scientist grant from the Department of Science and Technology, India. Her focus of research area is mainly non-classical function of vitamin D and diet and cancer. The research work in our lab is funded by ICMR, DBT, and DST. Our work is published in the reputed national and international journals. And today she is going to speak about vitamin D, immunity, and COVID-19. I welcome Dr.
Yes, Dr. Yes, Dr. Ayush Asman. Saina, you share the slides.
Thank you, Dr. Jagdish, for the nice introduction. And at the outset, I would like to thank Madam Director and Dr. Maheshwar for inviting me for this webinar on COVIDIET. And after hearing to our earlier speakers who gave excellent presentations on farming agriculture and then its role in nutrition and communication of the same in relation to COVID-19. The focus of my talk would be on vitamin D, immunity, and COVID-19. Next slide, please. Are we on the second slide?
Sainath? Dr. Sainath? Dr. Sainath?
Yes.
Share the slides.
It's coming, sir.
Yeah, it's just a little bit of...
Yes, yes, sir. 1 minute. Take your time.
Vitamin D. So we all know that it's also known as the sunshine vitamin because we are actually able to synthesize vitamin D in our skin when the UVB component of the sunlight rays fall on our skin. Then it converts a precursor in the skin to vitamin D3, and then it's a fat soluble vitamin, and food is a poor source actually of vitamin D, and it includes certain fishes, egg yolk, and mushrooms. And basically vitamin D exists in two forms in nature. One is called vitamin D3 or the cholecalciferol, and the other is the plant form of vitamin D, which is vitamin D2 or herbocalciferol. Now, when vitamin D is synthesized in our body in the skin, it's as such biologically inert and it needs to get further converted. So first it's converted to 25-hydroxy vitamin D, which is the biomarker for the vitamin D status in our body. And then it leads to another conversion forming 125-dihydroxy vitamin D3, which is the active hormonal form of vitamin D. And this binds to a specific receptor, which is called as the vitamin D receptor. Now, these receptors are expressed almost in all the tissues in the body, suggesting that vitamin D has a role to play in many different tissues. And as we know that the classical function of vitamin D is known to be maintenance of calcium and phosphate homeostasis in the body. Do we have the slides?
Slides are running now.
Okay, can we go to the next one? Slide number 3. Yeah. Okay, so in recent years, like almost 2 to 3 decades back, it was shown that vitamin D has role far beyond its classical function in calcium homeostasis. And now we know that it has a role in cardiovascular system regulation. It helps with muscle strength and metabolism. Then it has a role in decreasing cancer cell proliferation. It improves insulin secretion, thereby it has a role in diabetes and metabolic syndrome. And very importantly, last few years it has been shown that it has a critical role, no, the previous one. Previous. Yeah, that's it. So, so it is known to have a role in regulating the immune system. Going to the next one. Now, this slide is basically to show you, so we know that in recent years, vitamin D deficiency is become quite rampant all over the globe. And on the left side, you can see basically vitamin D status is now classified into 3 based on the serum levels of the 25-hydroxy vitamin D in the blood. So you are basically vitamin D sufficient if the levels are more than 30 nanograms per ml, insufficient if it is between 20 to 29, and deficient if the levels are below 20 nanograms per ml. And as you see on the right side, the world map, wherein you see that a lot of countries are actually falling in the insufficient range. That is, you see North America, South and Australia. And a lot of Asia, Europe, including India, you see that they are basically in the deficient range. So vitamin D deficiency is highly rampant and highly widespread, irrespective of countries, you know, whether they have plenty of sunshine or not. Next one. Now, so as this talk is basically focused on vitamin D and immunity, I would like to first tell you that the role of vitamin D in immune function became clear more than 3 decades ago, when 3 very important discoveries were made. One is they have shown the presence of the receptor of vitamin D in activated human lymphocytes. 2, it's the ability of the active form of vitamin D to inhibit T cell proliferation. And 3 was the ability of macrophages, which are immune cells, to actually produce the active form. So this suggested that there was a local, so there is a local synthesis of the active form of vitamin D in immune cells. Next. Now, this is just to show you, so basically when we are attacked by a foreign pathogen, there are 2 types of immune systems in our body. One is the innate immune response, which is the native immune response. And the other one is the adaptive or the acquired immunity. And vitamin D is known to have a role in both. So this is a bit, this slide will be a little technical, but I would just tell you the essence of it, that vitamin D is actually, it helps in anti-inflammation or anti-inflammatory response. So it kind of secretes antimicrobial peptides, it helps in secretion. And on the other hand, it kind of stops the pro-inflammatory response, which is triggered by T helper 1 cells or the Th17 cells. Going to the next. So basically it supports host immunity by enhancing local synthesis of antimicrobial peptides, which include cathalycidins and defensins. And these peptides will actually induce microbial killing by disruption of the cell membrane, as well as by neutralizing the endotoxins that are released. And then it suppresses the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines and chemokines, such as TNF-alpha and interferon gamma, and suppresses responses mediated by the T helper cell type 1. And it also plays a role in enhancing the development of T regulatory cells and balancing the T helper cell response to defend against pathogens and thereby decrease the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines. Next one. So this slide is just to give you, what has been reported of the role for vitamin D in respiratory tract infections. So way back in early 19th century, cod liver oil, so which we know is a rich source of vitamin D, was used for treating tuberculosis. Then a negative correlation has been found between vitamin D levels and upper respiratory infections, which was demonstrated in a large population-based nutrition survey. Then third, severe vitamin D deficiency have been reported to increase the incidence of pneumonia and increase in mortality. And then a level of 25-hydroxy-D of more than 38. So which, if you remember, which I showed you in the earlier slide, so that is sufficient or optimum levels of vitamin D in the circulation were inversely correlated with viral respiratory tract infections. And then nosocomial infection. So basically nosocomial is nothing but infections that originate in the hospital. So these decreased by a third with each 10 nanogram per ml rise in serum 25 hydroxy D levels. And this is a very recent study which has been reported from Spain. Next one. Now coming to COVID-19, so we all know that this is a disease which originated in Wuhan, China in December of 2019. And the causative agent is SARS-CoV-2, which is the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. Symptoms include fever, fatigue, and then it could lead to pneumonia and acute kidney failure and heart failure. And this disease has spread across the world with around 11 million cases and 5.3 lakh deaths recorded up to July 2020. And the highest incidence has been recorded in the United States, Brazil, and India, as well in countries that are densely populated, namely the Asia Pacific, have also been severely affected, with no country being spared from the COVID-19. Next one. Now, the pathophysiologic basis for the clinical manifestations of COVID-19 is believed to be secondary to an uncontrolled and complex immune response, or the so-called cytokine storm of the human body to the virus. Now, it's believed that the SARS-CoV-2 actually uses the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor, which is present in the host cell. And these receptors are expressed in epithelial cells of different organs, such as the lung, intestine, kidney, heart. So these are also the organs which we see are affected in severely ill COVID patients. So it binds, so basically the virus binds to these receptors and gains access to the host cells. And once the virus attaches to the receptor, it downregulates the activity and expression of this particular enzyme. Next one. So this slide is just to show you that there is a lot of, work is now kind of going on, but there are probably 2 molecular targets of vitamin D by which it could be protecting against the SARS-CoV-2. So one is that the active form of vitamin D inhibits the activity of renin. 2, actually the active form is exhibits anti-inflammatory response by enhanced expression of the ACE2. So if you see in the picture, so basically when the SARS-CoV-2 binds, it will downregulate or decrease the expression of the ACE2. But on the other hand, having sufficient levels of vitamin D will improve the ACE2, which will convert the angiotensin 2 to a peptide, a heptapeptide, thereby helping in vasodilation, anti-inflammation, and regulation of blood pressure. And thirdly, this particular virus is also known to bind to another receptor, which is the CD26 in the human lung cells, which is key to hijacking and virulence. So vitamin D sufficiency decreases expression of CD26. So as of now, we know that there could be 2 molecular targets by which vitamin D is probably having a protective effect against SARS-CoV-2. Next one. So now coming to observational studies on vitamin D and COVID-19. So a growing body of mostly observational evidence comparing outcomes from various countries suggests an inverse link between vitamin D levels and outcomes, including severity and mortality from COVID-19. Now, COVID-19 infection rates were found to be higher in countries with populations having lower prevalent vitamin D levels, such as in India and in Middle Eastern countries such as Iran. Now, countries such as Italy and Spain, although have sunny climates, but were shown to have high rates of infection. And it's well known that these regions have surprisingly high prevalence of vitamin D deficiency. Next one. then the lower infection and mortality rates in Nordic countries, so which are in the northern hemisphere, such as Norway, Finland, are an exception to the trend of more negative outcomes in northern latitudes. And this is likely explained by populations in these countries having relatively sufficient vitamin D levels, even in winter, due to widespread fortification of food. Another factor that may contribute to increased prevalence of vitamin D deficiency is environmental pollution. So we see that regions, some of the regions in the Asia Pacific region, which were hard hit by COVID, were also having high air pollution. For example, China and Delhi here in India. Now, a retrospective study that was done very recently on data from 212 COVID-19 patients in South Asian countries suggests that increase in the serum 25-hydroxy-D or vitamin D levels could actually improve clinical outcomes. So as the severity of the disease increased from mild to critical, serum 25-hydroxy-D levels decreased from the sufficient range to actually the deficient. And these were statistically significant with clinical outcomes. Next one. So in summary, vitamin D deficiency is a global health problem common among all age groups. Vitamin D is an important micronutrient and is reported to improve immunity and protect against respiratory illness. Now, circumstantial data linking vitamin D and COVID-19 exists. However, conclusive evidence on the role of vitamin D in protecting or as a treatment against COVID-19 is still lacking. Now, due to the global crisis that demands rapid solutions, supplementation with daily or weekly modest doses of vitamin D in patients infected with COVID-19 in whom vitamin D levels are deficient may afford some benefit without causing harm. And well-designed randomized controlled trials of vitamin D supplementation in patients with varying degrees of severity of COVID-19 infection are urgently warranted. Thank you. Next one.
So, thank you, Dr. Ayesha Ismail. Thanks for a nice presentation. Hello, Dr. Sainath?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Sainath, it looks many questions for Ayesha Ismail. You take up. Before that, I would like to thank Dr. Ayesha Ismail for a nice presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Maheshwar.
We know that until now we understood that vitamin D is related with bone health, but how vitamin D levels will plays a decisive factor in affecting COVID-19. By presenting global statistics, you have made nice presentation, Dr. Ayesha Ismail. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. Sainath to take question and answer session. We have only 10 minutes time, and most of the questions I'm seeing in the chat box that are posed to Dr. Ayesha only regarding how much sunlight we need to get exposed and what to do when we get headache like that. But Sainath, please proceed. Take over the question and answer session. Moderate the question and answer session.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. There were a few questions which were directed to the current topic. There was one question which was asking like, is sunlight harmful or does it have any harmful effects on our body? Ayesha Ismail, ma'am, please.
No, sunlight is not harmful. Actually, that's what. So sunlight is in fact the best and free source for vitamin D. And it is actually recommended that you need to expose yourself between 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. wherein the UVB component of the sunlight is the strongest, and that is what is required for vitamin D synthesis by our body.
Thank you, ma'am. There was another question where it was specifying like any specific areas in our body that helps in more absorption of vitamin D?
No, not any specific area. It can be any part of the body. but then you need to have a regular exposure to get like the enough amount of vitamin D that is needed.
Thank you, ma'am. And then maybe the last question for today is for this topic. How much sunlight is to be needed to maintain vitamin D levels?
It's recommended that you need to expose yourself for at least 15 to 20 minutes per day between that's what 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. When the UVB component is the strongest.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With that, we wind up the question and answer session.
Yes, Dr. Sainath. Now, once again, I thank all the speakers, including Dr. Aisha Ismail, Shri Somashikar Garu, and Dr. Bhavani from MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, and Dr. KM Nagar. Despite their busy schedule, they were very kind enough to spare time towards our webinar. I'm thanking them all. And now I request Dr. Sainath to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maheshwar. Good afternoon, everyone. The journey of the webinar on COVID diet, organized by National Institute of Nutrition as part of the National Nutrition Week celebrations 2020, has come to a successful and fruitful end. First of all, I would like to give my deepest thanks to the invited speakers, Dr. Nagar, Dr. Bhavani, Shri M Somashikar, Dr. Aisha Ismail, for accepting our invitation and sharing their valuable knowledge and experience with us. Thank you so much to all the invited speakers. Now, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of Extension and Training Division, place on record my sincere gratitude to our Director, Dr. R. Hemalata, for her continuous support and encouragement. My profound thanks goes to the HOD, Extension and Training Division, Member Secretary of MIAS, NIN, and the convener of the webinar, Dr. M. Maheshwar, for his positive and enthusiastic approach in planning and execution of the webinar in a very short duration. I express my sincere thanks to the HOD, Clinical Division, and MIAS NIN Department of Sports Sciences, Dr. Bharati Kulkarni, for her valuable support in smooth conductance of the webinar. My deep appreciation to Dr. Hari Krishna, Scientist D, MIAS NIN, the organizing secretary of the webinar, for his meticulous planning in creating the essential components for initiation and progress of the webinar. My utmost appreciation and a big thank you to the HOD, Department of NISH, convener of IT department and audio-visual committee, Dr. Subbarao, and his team of experts, Mr. Raju Nayak, Mr. Rahul, Mr. Rakesh, and others for their overwhelming support in the technical aspect in setting up the platform for the webinar. A special thanks to Mr. Devendran, the expert graphics designer, and the photographer, Mr. Narsimha, for their valuable support. A big thank you to the coordinator of the webinar, Dr. Jagdish Buvade, and Dr. Sylvia Fernandez, and Dr. Karen for their support. Finally, a big round of applause and a sincere thanks to all the participants for their active role in keeping the webinar interesting and special today. Last but not least, thank you all for a wonderful day of good learning. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. Now I announce the webinar has concluded. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bhavani, madam.